Races Net, first and third Sunday, 8 p.m., W5FC.
It is going to be starting here in about 3 minutes. If anybody needs to use the repeater before I start the net, this is in 5BB.
W5FC.
Control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet. Hey, Bravo, Bravo. In 5BB, my name is Bill, and I'll be your net control for this session of the Dallas Amateur Radio Club Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. It's open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break in your call sign. Is there any current priority or emergency traffic? To net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be myself in 5BB. Stations are reminded to identify at the end of your transmissions. Please do that, because then I know you're finished talking and we don't have to worry about FCC requirements. This weekly net operates at 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using a W5FC-R station identification or Echolink 37247. I am looking at Echolink, so you can send a message to me by texting over there. Hello, Chaz. Hello, Kelly. And hello, Shane and Mike. And maybe Tom. We never know. Tonight's topics: astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You do not need to be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This is N5BB, Skynet, net control. Minutes long, structured in several parts. I'm going to put through this very rapidly. General announcements: Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, National Space Society. Discussion topic of the evening was space exploration in history, Constellation of the week, space launches of the week, recent astronomical discoveries, and if we have time, visible satellite passages over the next few days. Then we might have time for astronomical questions and answers, followed by the 73s. All amateurs, radio operators licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. First, let's start with short-time check-in. Stations aiming to check in and leave pretty quickly. Come down with your name and call sign and your location. This is N5BB, Skynet, net control.
This is Alpha Alpha 5, Sierra Alpha, Sean and Irving.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Echo India Uniform, David, short time, St. Paul, Texas. This is Kilo Golf 5, Zulu India X-Ray, Joe and Wiley. Okay, we have three short-time check-ins. AA5SA, hello Sean. KG5EIU, hello David. And KG5ZIX, hello Joe. Do any of these three stations have any announcements for the net? If so, please come now with your call sign. Heard. Okay, now let's look for the RF check-ins. This is general RF check-ins. For Skynet, please come now with your name, your call sign, your name, and your location. This is N5BB, Skynet. This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra. It's Gus, far, far northeast Dallas. Golf 5, Uniform, Foxtrot, Romeo. Jacob in Dallas. Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom, Louisville. Oh, Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch. Yankee 5, Travis, Fort Worth.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda and DeSoto. Kilo 5, Kilo, Tango X-ray, Kelly in Quinlan.
ES5, JHA, Chaz, Mesquite.
Whiskey, Oscar, India, William, and Allen. Still short time. Missed this start.
There. I recognize W5GUS. Hello, Gus. KG5UFR Jacob. Jacob, you have a big hum on your signal. You might have a broken microphone wire, but it's a good likelihood you've got a lot of ripple in your power supply. So you might want to check things out. Something sounds broken. Next we have KE5ICX. Hello, Tom. KF5ZBL, Bill. The next station, Travis in Fort Worth. There was a double, and I missed your call sign, Travis. Please give it again.
Golf 5, Yankee Mike, Travis.
AG5YM. Welcome, Travis. Thank you for joining our net. And also WB5OZL, Brenda. And K5KTX, Kelly. KF5JHA, Chaz. And N5WIA in Allen. I apologize, I missed your name, and I should remember it, but I've forgotten. What was the name?
Whiskey over ice, William, and Allen.
I messed up your call sign. 5WOI, Whiskey Oscar India. Is that correct, William?
Correct, sir. N5WOI.
Very good. I was mixing you up with another call sign, which is the source of my confusion. Okay. Next, do we have any other RF check-ins for Skynet? This is N5BB. Over.
November 5, this is November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Claire Mesquite.
Golf 5, Uniform, Kilo Uniform, David Mesquite.
This is Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert Richardson.
Yes?
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony and Dallas.
Kilo 5, Golf Lima Delta, Randy Rowlett.
So 5, Juliet, Delta with John and Copel.
Let's pause there. There were a couple of doubles or near doubles, so I'm not sure if I got everybody. I would like to recognize N5OF, Clay. Good evening. KG5UKU. Hello, David. AA5AH. Hi, Robert. NT5TM. Tony. And Bird 1 and Bird 2, or whatever their names are. K5GLE. Hi, Randy. K5JDW. John. Our Texas, Oklahoma visitor who comes back and forth. Do we have anybody else that would like to check into Skynet via RF? This is N5BB, net controller.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey, Victor Lima, James and Kelsey.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Papa Hotel, John Plano. 5, Golf Lima Delta, Randy Brelett. There. Randy, I got you earlier, although I'm not sure if I recognized you. So this time I will double recognize K5GLD, Randy. And go back up to N5OF, hello Clay. KG5UKU, hi David. AA5AH Robert, ND5TM. I think I recognized you before, but I'm just making sure. Now, KG5WVL, hello James. And KG5PPH, John. Did I miss anybody? This is N5BB. Do we have any other RF check-ins to Skynet?
Oh, Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth.
I recognize KB9 SOK. Hello, Sean. Do we have any other RF check-ins? This is Skynet in 5BB.
1, Golf Bravo Delta, K1GBD, Sky and Lake Island.
Oh, Guy, K1GBD. Do we have any other RF check-ins for Skynet? This is in 5BB. VIP. Hello, Ken. Are you in Irving this evening?
I'm on my way back to Carrollton and went to Dave for dinner.
You broke up a little bit, but I got you the idea that you were mobile. Do we have any other RF check-ins for Skynet? This is in 5BB, net control. Okay, it looks like we have winnowed down the RF for now. Let's look at Echolink. We have ICX, we have KTX. Shane, W0MBC. Would you like to come in on voice? It is Bethany with you this evening.
Hi, Bell. This is W0MBC. Shane.
I'm Bethany Blue Springs. Hi, Dallas.
Oh, very good there, Shane. WB5OZL, Brenda. I thought I acknowledged you before, but I'll acknowledge you now. WB5OZL, acknowledged. And K5KTX and KF5JHA. I thought I acknowledged that section of my log. Maybe I didn't. I'm just looking at the complaints here on the text. Let's see, who else? WB5JFP. Mike, I see you on there. Would you like to come in on voice? And I've forgotten where you're located. I think you've been in here before. WB5JFP. Are you there, Mike?
WB5JFP, Mike in Fort Worth. No traffic tonight, just sitting in for the first time, checking it out. Good to be with you guys. WB5JFP.
Well, recognize WB5JFP, Mike in Fort Worth. You will find that what goes on the Echolink text may be a little out of control, but during the net, we do a lot of talking about astronomy-related topics and sometimes other topics like spacecraft. So it's pretty interesting if you like that kind of stuff, if you're a science nerd. I'd like to also recognize another station I don't remember, KI5NCB, Kilo India 5, November Charlie Bravo, Blake. Blake, would you like to come in on voice and tell us where you're located?
Hey, this is Blake, KI5NCB in North Richland Hills. I was just scanning the waterfall here on my radio, and I saw this frequency active, and I guess I couldn't reach it. I'm only on 10 watts, so I heard you mention Echolink, so I thought I would pop on. But yeah, just no traffic, just listening in.
Well, it's not a traffic net. It's an information net. We will hear about things involving astronomy, space, anything you might see if you go outside and look up with your eyes or a telescope. Or if you're in Boca Rica, or I'm not saying that right, if you're in South Texas, things that you hear exploding nearby because there's a little bit of rocketry problems still being worked out. Well, very good. Okay, we've run out the Echolink stations. Do we have any additional stations over any mode that would like to check into Skynet? This is N5BB.
Kilo Golf 5, Zulu Mike Golf, Joe in Arlington.
Oh, is it Kilo 5, Zulu Mike Golf?
Kilo Golf 5, Zulu Mike Golf on Echolink.
I see you over there now, Joe. KG5ZMG. I'm sorry I missed you, or maybe you came in late. Very good. Do we have any other stations that would like to check in to Skynet? This is N5BB, Net Control. Nothing heard. Let's move ahead in the net. Now, do we have any general announcements? This is things about amateur radio, astronomy, or space of general interest to licensed hams. Just any general space, astronomy, or general interest announcements. If so, please come now with your call sign only. Oh my, that was a perfect double. I think W5GUS, and who is the other station? It's Tango Mike. Were there any other stations wanting to do announcements other than W5GUS and NT5TM? Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Bill. W5GUS here. Just kind of a little blurb about the space race. This is out of the morning news. I guess it's been several weeks ago, but Turkish President Erdogan unveiled an ambitious 10-year space program for his country that includes missions to the moon, sending Turkish astronauts into space, and developing internationally viable satellite systems. He said Turkey planned to establish a first contact with the moon in 2023 when the country marks its centennial of the founding of the Turkish Republic. The first stage of the mission would be through international cooperation, while the second stage would utilize Turkish rockets, he said. And that's it. So Turkey might take SpaceX problems away from them. W5GUS. Back to net.
Well, very good, Gus. Okay, Tony, it's your turn.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Gus. I hadn't heard that about Turkey, and that is interesting. This is much closer to home and probably not as dramatic in its effect on long-term space policy. I just wanted to remind everyone that while we do have an Afterglow movie discussion tonight at about 10:30, there is no meeting on the air and no Races Net this weekend. No meeting on the air and no Races Net. That's it. NT5TM.
Oh my, Tony, I don't know what we'll do tomorrow night. We'll be lonely. We'll have to do other things. Maybe not even the amateur radio things. Ooh. Okay, do we have any other announcements for Skynet? This is in 5BB. Nothing heard. There was an interesting comment, things in ARL letter for ARL members. It comes out on Thursdays via email. The FT8 mode HF accounts for nearly 2/3 of HF activity, according to one count. So a huge amount of stations are using FT8. I still like CW better, but I'm an old fuddy-duddy, I guess. Okay. Now let's move ahead to the next part of the net. We now have the MSAT, Radio Amateur Satellite Group, has 2 nets available. On Tuesday evenings, there is a net at 8 o'clock Central Time on Echolink. Also on Tuesday evenings, there is a net on this repeater at 8 p.m. That net does not occur on the first Tuesday of the month. But on all other Tuesdays, you will find a net here on this repeater at 8 p.m. on Tuesday, which concerns the Amateur Satellite Corporation, MSAT. Also, there's a local net on Wednesday evenings at 9 p.m. on the 147.14 megahertz Arlington repeater. So, does anybody have any questions about AMSAT and those nets? If so, please come now in 5BB. There's many nets on this repeater. As Tony just mentioned, there aren't going to be any nets tomorrow evening, except for the traffic net at 6:30 p.m. The DFW traffic net meets at 6:30 p.m. on nearly every evening on this net, on this frequency, and on the 146.72 Irving repeater at 10:30 p.m. every single day. And then we have other nets involving ham fixings net, emergency communications, geek net, and a surprise net on Monday evenings. So, The CertNet is at 7:30 p.m. on Friday evenings. So lots going on. Saturday evenings is a night of nets. TrafficNet at 6:30. We then have the TechNet at 7 p.m. Skynet, the net you're listening to now, at 9 p.m. and the Afterglow net at 10:30 p.m. Tonight's Afterglow net is going to be about a certain interesting movie. Gentlemen Broncos. Tom, do you want to do the honors and let us know what's going on during the Afterglow net tonight in 5BB?
Yes, this is KE5ICX. Give me a second here. I forgot to put it in the script, but I know what it is. Hold on.
I haven't seen the movie. Not really about gentlemen, and it's not about any animal called a bronco, or it's not about a vehicle called a bronco, and it's not about O.J. Simpson in a bronco. But go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Bill. I have it right here. Now, everybody listen carefully. This is a very accurate synopsis of tonight's movie. The science fiction boot camp was new and a quick way for science fiction writers to revive their career and pocket cash from promising young new writers who needed a creative shot in the arm. Ellison was in the corner with his Smith Corman. Nicknamed He Who Has a Big Mouth and Always Screamed, right on cue began his rant. You bums have no idea how hard it is to write for cretins. You see my fingers? Work to the bone. He raised his full 4'2" frame and threw his typewriter at a student. The behemoth whizzed by the young author and crashed in pieces next to his desk. He continued, write something now in longhand? Well, I hold this butter knife to your throat. Do it now or die a slow death from this unbelievably dull butter knife. Another corner, another author was power-bombing and dropping acid. He explained his motivation. You see, I dropped enough acid to fuel 2 incomprehensible books. You know, I've time traveled, too. Did I ever tell you about my story inside a story wrapped in a butcher block, a story inside of a story wrapped in butcher block paper about spacefaring Nazis? The third man seemed the most logical. He spoke, I made a fortune out of converting 22-minute Star Trek cartoons into full-length novels. All I needed was this thesaurus and a Hardy Boys adventure novel as inspiration. Before I knew it, I owned a beach house in Hawaii. Good times. Join us for a most curious adventure, Gentlemen, from 2009 tonight at 10:30 p.m. The stream will continue, and I will be dressing as one of the main characters, so you'll have to watch the stream. This is KE5ICX, back to World Control.
My, I may have to tune to the stream just to see what Tom is doing. This is N5BB and Skynet. That movie again is Gentlemen Broncos. And no Broncos were injured during the making of this movie. And no gentlemen were involved either. I thought Tom was channeling Harlan Ellison there at the start when he was starting to rant and rave. But Harlan Ellison was not involved in the making of this movie either, fortunately. Okay, next, Chaz. It's time for the Texas Astronomical Society of Texas events. What's going on with Tess? Chaz, this is N5BB and Skynet.
Good evening, everyone. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be on Friday, April the 23rd. That would be the year 2021 at 7:30 p.m. The featured speaker will be Dr. Aaron McDonald, who is a consultant for the Star Trek universe. The title of her talk is The Physics of Star Trek. Oh, this is going to be a good meeting. Texas Astronomical Society Club members will receive an email link to the Zoom meeting about a week in advance. Hopefully this year, maybe later this year, the Texas Astronomical Society will resume having face-to-face meetings, we hope. And maybe we'll be able to resume having public observing sessions. But to find out detailed information, you can check their website at texasastro.org. And that's for updated information and details. This is KF5 JHA, back to our net world control. Bill, N5BB.
Does anybody have any questions about the Texas Astronomical Society? If so, please come now with your call sign only. Okay, now you get to hear me talk about National Space Society. This is N5BB. I happen to be the membership director of the North Texas chapter of the National Space Society. You can, if you have any questions about National Space Society, if you want to join, hint, hint, or have any other issues with National Space Society or the local chapter, you can send me an email at space@byrom.net. That's space@byrom.net. Or my call sign, N5BB@ARRL.net. Either one. The National Space Society normally, if we didn't have a pandemic, meets on the second Sunday of every month in the afternoon at 4 p.m. at Spring Creek Barbecue in Irving on Highway 183. Right now we can't do that yet, so we're meeting virtually. So the next meeting will be on April the 11th. And even though I saw an email with the subject of that meeting, I've temporarily forgotten what it's going to be. So we'll be back here next week and we can remind everybody of it. If you would like to be invited to be as a visitor to any of our meetings, they're on WebEx, just send me an email at those email addresses I mentioned before, and I'll be glad to add you as a visitor. By the way, Yuri's Night, which is the anniversary of Yuri Gagarin going up in 60 years ago, I believe. Is that right? Yeah, I believe that's correct. There's going to be a discussion about that on Monday, the 12th. So not this coming Monday, but the following Monday, April the 12th. It's going to be a presentation that's going to be given on WebEx. University of Texas at Dallas students are invited. But if you have any interest in listening to that Yuri's Night 2021 event, since we can't do it down at the Perot Museum this year, it's going to be online. Again, please send me an email at space@byrom.net. And that's all the immediate National Space Society things going on. Let's go back and see if there's any other check-ins to Skynet. This is N5BB, Net Control. Next, unfortunately, you get to listen to me some more. This is N5BB, Net Control for Skynet. The discussion topic for this evening is going to be, by me, It's an article in the latest issue of Science magazine. This is the American Association for the Advancement of Science. And it's the March 26th issue from a few days ago. And the name of the article is Remains of Moon-Forming Impact May Lie Deep in the Earth. Mysterious rocks at Mantle's base, tied to violent Theia, I spell T-H-E-I-A, strike 4.5 billion years ago. And this article was written by Paul Vuson. I'm just going to read the article quickly here. Scientists have long agreed that the moon formed when a protoplanet called Theia struck Earth in its infancy roughly 4.5 billion years ago. Now a team of scientists has a provocative new proposal. Theia's remains can be found in two continent-sized layers of rock buried deep in Earth's mantle. Seismologists have puzzled over these two blobs, which sit below West Africa and the Pacific Ocean, and straddle the core like a pair of headphones. Up to 1,000 kilometers tall and several times that wide, they are the largest thing in the Earth's mantle, says Quan Yan, a PhD student in seismology at Arizona State University in Tempe. Seismic waves from earthquakes abruptly slow down when they pass through the layers, which suggests they are denser and chemically different from the surrounding mantle rock. The large, low-shear velocity provinces, that has a horrible acronym, LLSVPs, all them, might simply have crystallized out of the depths of Earth's primordial magma ocean. Or they might be dense puddles of primitive mantle rock that survived the trauma of the moon-forming impact. But based on new isotopic evidence and modeling, one believes the LSVPs are the guts of the alien impactor itself. This crazy idea is at least possible, says Yuan, who presented the hypothesis last week at the Lunar and Planetary Science Conference. The idea has rattled around lab corridors and conference halls for years. But Edward Garnero, the seismologist at Arizona State University Tempe, who was not involved in the work, says it's the first time anyone has marshaled multiple lines of evidence and mounted a serious case for it. I think it's completely viable until someone tells me it's not. Evidence from Iceland and Samoa suggest the LLSVPs have existed since the time of the moon-forming impact, says Shajoy Mukhopadhyay, a geochemist at the University of California in Davis, who considers Juan's idea plausible, but is open to other explanations. Seismic imaging has traced plumes of magma that feed volcanoes on both islands all the way down to the LLSVPs. Over the this is Iceland and Samoa he's talking about. Over the last decade, Mukhopadhyay and others have discovered that lavas on the islands contain an isotopic record of radioactive elements that formed only during the first 100 million years of Earth's history. 5BB and Skynet. Moreover, a new picture of the moon-forming impactor suggests it could have delivered a cargo of dense rock deep inside Earth. The impact theory was developed in the 1970s to explain why the moon is dry and doesn't have much of an iron core. In a cataclysmic impact, volatiles like water would have vaporized and escaped, while a ring of less dense rocks thrown up in the collision would have eventually coalesced into the moon. The theory invoked an impactor the size of Mars, or, in recent variants, much smaller. The recent work from Juan's co-author, ASU Tempe astrophysicist Stephen Desch, suggests Theia was nearly as big as Earth. Of Apollo moon rocks, Desch and his colleagues measured the ratios of hydrogen to deuterium, the heavier hydrogen isotope. Light hydrogen was far more abundant in some of the moon samples than in Earth rocks they found. To capture and hold on to so much light hydrogen, Theia must have been massive, a proposed 2019 study in geochemistry. It must also have been quite dry, as any water, which is naturally enriched in heavy hydrogen during its formation in interstellar space, would have raised the overall deuterium levels. Such a dry, large protoplanet would have separated into layers with an iron-depleted core and an iron-rich mantle. Desch says some 2 to 3.5% denser than present Earth. Even before Juan learned of Desch's density estimates, he was modeling Theia's fate. His models suggest that after the collision, Theia's core would have quickly merged with Earth. He also probed the fate of Theia's mantle, varying Theia's size and density to see what conditions would have allowed the material to persist, rather than mixing in and sink to the mantle's base. The simulations consistently showed that mantle rocks 1.5 to 3.5% denser than Earth would survive and end up as piles near the core. The result lined up perfectly with Densch's deuterium evidence. It's the sweet spot for the density, Desch says. Theia would also explain the scale of the LLSVPs, which together contain 6 times more mass than the moon. If they are extraterrestrial, Juan says, only an impactor as large as Theia could have delivered them. There are many caveats, however, including the fuzzy evidence for the LLSVPs themselves. Their pile-like structure could simply be an illusion created by models of the interior that rely on low-frequency seismic waves, which blur small differences. Barbara Romanowitz sorry about these names, a seismologist at UC Berkeley, and Anne Deville, a geophysicist at Paris Sickle University, suggested in a study in tectonics last year. Up 1,000 kilometers, the piles may rise only a few hundred kilometers before breaking off into branched plumes. There may be holes in them, she says. They may be a bundle of tubes. This is N5BB, Skynet. More or less monolithic LLSVPs would also be consistent with the forthcoming analysis that finds that LSVPs are densest at the bottom. The analysis relies on two ways of imaging the deep Earth, using GPS stations to measure the way the moon's tidal pole stretches Earth, and seismometers to sense how Earth's natural vibrations pass through the deep mantle. Perhaps the real story behind the density is the distribution depth. Less massive LSVPs could complicate the idea that CL is nearly the size of a proto-Earth, says Jennifer Jenkins, a seismologist at Durham University. Juan's picture, she adds, is not inconsistent with what we know, but I'm not entirely convinced. Then says his team, or the team, could test its idea by looking for geochemical similarities between the island lavas and rocks from the moon's mantle. These are in Samoa and Iceland. Lava coming up there. None of the Apollo samples capture the unaltered mantle, which is one reason scientists want samples from the Mars' largest impact crater on its south pole, where such rocks may be exhumed. NASA and China are both planning robotic missions to the South Pole this decade. It is a leading candidate site for NASA's return of astronauts to the moon, where, of course, we'll have the first woman on the moon. As remnants do lie deep in Earth's mantle, they may not be alone. Seismologists are increasingly seeking small, ultra-dense pockets of material in the deep mantle, only a few hundred kilometers across. But they're increasingly seeing these pockets, often near the edges of the LSVPs. Maybe they are the sunken remnants of iron-rich cores from other miniature planets that hit early Earth. In fact, might be just one grave in a planetary cemetery. Now, isn't that interesting? Maybe Earth was formed from several large and small planets all coming together. What an interesting story. Okay, that's all I've got for that story. It was plenty long. This is N5BB Skynet Net Control. Do we have any additional check-ins? No additional check-ins. And Kelly thinks that Christina Koch will be the first one on the moon. Interesting. Okay, next let's go to Was Up. This is by Chaz, KF5JHA. Take it away, Chaz. This is N5BB, Skynet Net Control, on the Dallas Amateur Radio Club repeater.
Evening, everyone. This is Chaz, KF5JHA, and my degree is in astrophysics. I'm the astrophysics lab manager at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus, and we call this segment of Skynet Was Up. Slide number 2, please, slide changer. Oh, before we do that, though, do you know what today's date is? It's 4, 3, 2, 1. Slide number 2. So why is Easter tomorrow? How do we determine the date for Easter? Many holidays on our current calendar are fixed to a date, like Valentine's Day is always on February 14th, and St. Patrick's Day is on March 17th. Christmas is December 25th. Some holidays are defined like the first Monday of the month, like Labor Day, or the last Monday of the month, like Memorial Day, or the fourth Thursday of the month. You can guess what that one is, right? Yeah, it's Thanksgiving. Then there is this holiday, Easter, and it's somewhere between the dates of March 22nd and April the 25th each year. But why is it in between somewhere? The simple explanation is that Easter is the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. But it's a little bit more complicated than that, so let's explore this. Now, before I continue with this, I've got to do an Easter bunny joke, okay, because something's happening tomorrow. What do you call a rabbit with fleas? Now, let's wait a moment. Oh, yes, I see some hands raised out there. Yeah, okay. So what do you call a rabbit with fleas? Bunny. Well, I hope that was funny. Okay. Slide number 3, please. The determination of Easter has to do with the lunar calendar and not so much with the modified Gregorian calendar that we use daily. The Gregorian calendar is primarily a solar calendar. Several religions use a lunar-based calendar to celebrate holidays. The Chinese celebrate their New Year Day on the first day of the first lunar month of their year, but that does not fall on January the 1st of the Gregorian calendar. The Chinese calendar is based on both the moon and the sun, and so is considered a lunisolar calendar. Ramadan is celebrated by the Islamic religion using their Islamic calendar, which is primarily a lunar calendar. Number 4, please. Maybe I should talk about some facts first. The Earth does not orbit the Sun in an even number of days. It takes approximately 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 46 seconds to orbit the Sun. This is called the tropical year, or the year of the seasons. It's the length of time to go from one vernal equinox to the next vernal equinox. I should use the sidereal year if I did that, which compares the Earth's orbit to the background stars. It's approximately 365 days, 6 hours, 9 minutes, and 9 seconds, which is about 20 minutes, 24 seconds longer than the tropical year. Oh no, all these numbers. But I'm not going to use that. But why are those years different in length? That's an entire different discussion for another time. Since the Earth goes around the Sun in about 365 and a fraction days, we use 365 days as the year. Then after the calendar is off by a few days, then a few months, and Christmas would be celebrated during the hottest times of the year. So we add an extra day every 4 years, but not always. There are exceptions to the year. If the year can be divided by 100, then we don't add an extra day. If it's divisible by 400, it's not added as a leap year. And you get the idea. The Mayans had a different idea for the calendar. They had 12 months that each had 30 days, a total of 360 days a year. After 6 years, they added an extra month to synchronize with the sun. So instead of a leap day every 4 years, they had a leap month every 6 years. Slide number 5, please. That's confusing. Let's talk about the moon. The lunar phase cycle is, or a synodic month, is going to go from new moon to the next new moon. It's approximately 29.53058791 days long. Dividing the number of days in the year by the number of days for the synodic lunar month does not give us an even number of whole days. The Gregorian calendar year and the synodic lunar month gets shifted all the time. A full moon doesn't always happen on the same date each month. I hope that much is understandable anyway. Slide number 6, please. With that background information, let's get back to our story about the date of Easter. Easter, or Resurrection Day, is celebrated in the spring and is connected with the Jewish holiday of Passover, which is also held in the spring. Passover is a celebration of when God freed the Hebrew people and Moses led them out of ancient Egypt. This celebration has gone on for thousands of years. The Jewish people tried to visit or have a pilgrimage to the temple in Jerusalem over Passover. It took some time to travel by foot, and even took a while longer if you could afford, and not as quite as long if you could afford a donkey. Traveling at night would speed up the trip, so there were no street lights That would make for hazardous travel, but a full moon could allow nighttime travel more easily. Passover is celebrated on the 15th day of the Jewish month of Nisan, which would place the Passover in the middle of the lunar month, so right around a full moon. The Jewish calendar is a lunisolar calendar. Since the 4th century, the dates have been mathematically determined for Passover. Historically, we know that Christ's trial and crucifixion happened during Passover. Slide number 7, please. In agreement of the Council of Nicaea in the year 325, they set the date for the vernal equinox to always be on March 21st. That's not really right, but just for the purposes of calculation of Easter. In reality, the leap years and equinox can vary from March 19th through March 22nd. So having the equinox for calculating Easter to always be on March 21st makes the calculation a little bit easier. Slide number 8, please. Now, in the year 2021, the vernal equinox was on March 20th at 4:37 a.m. Central Daylight Time, and the first full moon after that was March 28th at 2:50 p.m. Central Daylight Time. And the Sunday after that is April the 4th, and that date is tomorrow. And now you probably know more than you wanted to about the length of the year, the length of the lunar cycle, and the possible dates for Easter. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 9, please. On March 28th was the full moon. I already told you that a moment ago. So the current phase of the moon is a waning gibbous. The moon will be third quarter on April the 4th. That would be tomorrow. And on April 11th, the moon will be at its new phase. On April the 14th, the moon will be at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth. And on April the 20th, the moon will be at its first quarter phase. Number 10, please. On April the 6th, the early morning sky, covering about a 12-degree span, you can find the conjunction of Jupiter, Saturn, and the moon. And number 11, please. Exploring the evening sky on April the 16th, you can find Mars and the moon in conjunction in the western sky. And slide number 12, on April the 24th, looking low on the western evening sky, you can find Venus and Mercury in conjunction. Venus was in the morning sky for about 9 months. Now the Venus will be in the evening sky for about 9 months. Venus will be the brighter of the objects and will be on the left. Mercury will be the right side and dimmer. Number 13, on the night of April the 21st and 22nd, the Lyrid meteor shower peaks with about 18 meteors per hour. Of course, you'll see more meteors after midnight. That's the side of the Earth that runs into the debris in outer space. When the moon is in the sky, very few meteors can be seen. So on April the 21st, the moon will set around 1 a.m., and after that, you'll be able to see more meteors. This is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 14, the next Dallas Astronomical Society of, the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas club meetings once again will be on Friday, April the 23rd at 7:30 p.m. with a featured speaker, Dr. Erin McDonald, who is a consultant for Star Trek, and her title is going to be The Physics of Star Trek. It's going to be fun. If you want more details about the Texas Astronomical Society and their activities, go to texasastro.org. Now, slide number 15, I want to welcome the students from Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus that are listening and watching Skynet tonight, probably either on YouTube or Facebook. Students, just a reminder, if you want to get stargazing class credit, then you've got to remember to fill out the form on eCampus by answering the 10 questions, and do this within the next 48 hours. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of the information? Or do you just have a general astronomy question? I don't know everything, but I may know the answer to your question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question.
E5ICX.
ACX, what's the question that you have?
Yes, thank you so much about talking about calendars. That's quite fascinating. I need to know, what do you recommend is the best calendar to buy? Should it be a Gregorian calendar or a Star Trek calendar? KE5I6.
The way, the Star Trek calendar that you buy is a Gregorian calendar. So, yeah, okay. That is the same thing. That's a great question, though. Oh, Kelly over here says 4321. That's the date, by the way. April the 3rd, 43, and the year is 21. 4321. That's the date. Okay, I hope that answered your question, Kelly. All right. Slide number 16, please. So as the moon waned during the first part of March, so these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live. And until next week, keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is Chaz, KF5JJ. Back to our net control. That would be Bill in 5BB.
Okay, Chaz. Well, Chaz kind of slid by your question, but good enough. This is N5BB, net control for Skynet. Do we have any stations that would like to check in? If so, please come with your call sign only.
Golf 5, Zulu, India, X-ray, Joe, and Wiley.
Joe, I checked you in right at the start, within the first couple of minutes of the net. Did you have any other comments or something?
I didn't copy that. I don't have my hearing aid in.
Okay, KG5ZIX and 5BB. You're already checked in, Joe. I checked you in within the first few minutes of the net. Do you have any questions?
I'm fine.
Okay. Do we have any stations that would like to check in to the net? Any additional check-ins to Skynet? This is N5BB. Please come now. Thing heard. Now it's time for Brenda, WB5OZL. Brenda is going to talk about space exploration and space history and the Europa Clipper. Go right ahead, Brenda, N5BB, Skynet.
Bill, in space exploration news, NASA's Europa Clipper builds hardware and moves toward assembly. Jupiter's moon Europa may have the potential to harbor life. Spacecraft will use multiple flybys of the moon to investigate the habitability of this ocean world. Europa Clipper, NASA's upcoming flagship mission to the outer solar system, has passed a significant milestone, completing its critical design review. During the review, experts examined the detailed design of the spacecraft to ensure that it is ready to complete construction. The mission is now able to complete hardware fabrication and testing and move toward the assembly and testing of the spacecraft and its payload of sophisticated science instruments. With an internal global ocean twice the size of Earth's oceans combined, Jupiter's moon Europa carries the potential for conditions suitable for life, but the frigid temperatures and the non-stop pummeling of the surface from Jupiter's radiation make it a tricky target to explore. Mission engineers must design a spacecraft hardy enough to withstand the radiation, yet sensitive enough to gather the science needed to investigate Europa's environment. The Europa Clipper orbiter will swoop around Jupiter on an elliptical path, dipping close to the moon on each flyby to conduct detailed reconnaissance. The science includes gathering measurements of the internal ocean, mapping the surface composition and its geology, and hunting for plumes of water vapor that may be venting from the icy crust. And I know this is a topic we're all eager for. Ingenuity is going to fly soon. We don't have a date yet. A site for the airshow demo has been selected, obviously for its flatness and relative absence of FOD. They're teasing us with a date, but it will probably be sometime in April. Ingenuity is what's known as a technology demonstration, a project that seeks to test a new capability for the first time with limited scope. The helicopter does not carry science instruments and is a ride-along on the Mars 2020 Perseverance mission. Ingenuity's objective is an engineering one, to demonstrate rotorcraft flight in the extremely thin atmosphere of Mars. Astronaut birthdays. William O. Feline, March 29th, 1965. Patrick G. Forrester, March 31st, 1957. Michael Foreman, March 29th, 1957. Joseph M. Paul, March 30th, 1943. Gus Grissom, April 3rd, 1926. William Frederick Fisher, April 1st, 1946. This week in space history, March 25th, 1960, is an X-15 flight. NASA Flight Research Center, now NASA Armstrong Flight Research Center, research pilot Joseph A. Walker flew the first NASA flight in a North American X-15 rocket aircraft. He reached Mach 2 at 48,630 feet. It was the 9th flight of the program. The preceding 8 flights had been flown by Scott Crossfield for North American Aviation as part of the acceptance process. The 8th, 1963, SA-4 launches. The Saturn I SA-4 rocket launched from NASA's Kennedy Space Center. The uncrewed suborbital test flight was the final of 4 tests of the Saturn I first, or S1, stage that employed a cluster of 8 H1 engines. After 100 seconds into flight, a preset timer cut off engine number 5 as planned to test the engine out capability. Fuel was successfully routed to the other 7 engines, and the flight continued. Managed by NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center, the Saturn I vehicle and its follow-on, Saturn 1B, served as test-bed rockets for the larger and more powerful Saturn V that would eventually carry the first humans to the moon. Today, Marshall is playing a vital role in the Artemis program by developing the Space Launch System, the backbone of NASA's exploration plans, and the only rocket capable of sending humans to the moon and Mars. So I got back to net, WB5OZL.
Good. Does anybody have any questions about Brenda's item? This is N5BB, Skynet. dB, Skynet.
This is Bravo, number 4, Mike, Foxtrot, India, WB4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
Ted, WB4MFI. Our number 29. Have any other check-ins? Next is time for Chaz, KF5GH, KF5JHA, with Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. Take it away, Chaz. This is N5DB, Skynet.
Oh, slide number 17, please. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent T. Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week almost from its beginning in the year 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year, out of the 88 total number of constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky in a year. In her honor, we have continued the tradition of a constellation per week. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is actually two of them. This week is Leo the Lion and Leo Minor, the small lion or the little lion. Leo is one of the zodiac constellations and is the 12th largest constellation in size, occupying an area of 947 square degrees. Leo is one of the oldest constellations in the sky. Archaeological evidence suggests that Mesopotamians had a constellation similar to Leo as early as 4000 BC. The Persians knew the constellation of Seir or Sir. Babylonians called it the Great Lion. The Greeks also associated Leo with a Nemean lion, the beast killed by Hercules during the first of his 12 labors. And the lion was placed among the constellations because it was the king of the beasts. In the sky, the 6 bright stars that form the sickle of Leo, that would be the front end or the head of the lion, represents the lion's head. I'm not through with the joke, so I've got to do these. Slide number 18, please. What animal do you need to make a square? Or lions, of course. What do you call a lion with chickenpox? Not a lion. What do you call a lion wearing a stylish hat? The lion. What's a lion running a copy machine called? Be a copycat. And how do we know lions are religious? Because they pray frequently and they pray as a family. Oh wait, I do have one more. What street do lions live on? Main Street. Okay, that's enough of that. All right, slide number 19, please. Regulus, which is Alpha Leonis, means the little king. It's a brightest star in the constellation of Leo. Robert Burnham notes in Burnham's Celestial Handbook that Regulus has been almost universally associated with the ancient cultures with royalty and kingly power. Regulus is a multiple star system with Regulus B and C easily observable in just about any instrument as a single star, but what appears as a single star can be split with a large instrument and good seeing. Regulus itself is a B-type, or a bluish-white star. Regulus flies only half a degree above the ecliptic, so it's fairly common for the moon to pass very near it, and from time to time, the moon will occult or block the view of Regulus. Now, I want to see a show of hands out there. Is there anyone who was alive on July the 7th, 1959? If so, how old were you? And on that date, the planet Venus actually occulted or blocked the star Regulus, which is an extreme rare event. Okay, I'll take call signs. If somebody has got to see that event, come down with your call sign and let me know about it.
November 5, Bravo Bravo was only, I believe, 4 years old, so I don't remember it.
Of course, all of you know out there that I'm only 16 years old, so I wasn't even born back then. Oh, a Li-ion battery, a lithium-ion battery. I like that, Phil. Thank you. I'm reading Echolink. If you don't know, things go on Echolink that has nothing to do sometimes with what's going on the air. Okay, let's see. Algebra, which is Gamma Leonis, is derived from the Arabic phrase which means the lion's mane. It's an interesting double star with the primary star having an orange-red color, and the companion is a yellow-green, which makes some nice color contrast here, at least for some of us. Just 2 degrees to the northwest of Gamma Leonis is the radiant of the famous Leonid meteor shower, which peaks on November the 17th each year, originating from Comet 55P Temple Tuttle. Please, the Leo triplet, or the Leo trio, M65, 66, and NGC 3628. These 3 galaxies are so close together, it's easy to split all 3 of them in the be able to see all 3 of them in the same low-powered field of view. They can be observed in a 3-inch telescope. They look like faint, fuzzy balls with slightly different shapes, and an 8-inch telescope easily shows all 3 galaxies. Photographs show a warp, an NGC 3628 dust lanes, and the asymmetrical structure of M66, which contributes to the listing as an ARP atlas of peculiar galaxies. Number 21, M105 is an elliptical galaxy. Deb Hutchinson writes that in a Celestron 8, it essentially looks like a big fuzzy cotton ball. In his book, The Messier Objects, by Stephen J. O'Meara, he writes that M105 is perhaps the purest object in the Messier catalog, in that it is slightly oval disk, shows the least amount of imperfection. M105 has 2 nearby but somewhat fainter companions, NGC 3384 and NGC 3389, which can all easily fit in the same field of view. It all has slightly more distant companions, which are M95 and 96, which I'll talk about next. Slide number 22, please. M95 and 96, Dave Hutchinson writes that M95 and 96 are 2 beautiful spiral galaxies can be seen in the same field of view using an 8-inch mid-Cassegrain grain. With a wider field of view and at low 20 power, you may be able to see M105 in the same field of view as M95 and M96. M95 is a barred spiral galaxy, and at higher power, its central bar is visible. M96 is classified as a normal spiral galaxy. Some structure is visible with higher magnifications. Slide number 23, please. And this is KF5, JHA, this is Skynet. Leo Minor! A small faint constellation in the northern sky is the only one star brighter than 4th magnitude. That's it, 1 star. It's not even bright. The constellation name means the smaller lion, or the lesser lion in Latin. Leo Minor was created in 1687 from 18 stars between the larger constellation of Leo and Ursa Major. It has no myths associated with it, and it's the 64th constellation in size, so it's kind of small, occupying only an area of 232 square degrees. Slide number 24, Beta Leonis Minor It's the only star in the Leo Minor that has a Greek letter name. It's the second brightest star in the constellation. Beta Leonis Minor is a binary star. The Camones have one of the designations of one of the companions is G83-4, and the other one is an F84. Okay, which means that they're yellow subgiant and a yellow-white subgiant. The brightest star is 36 times more luminous than the Sun and has about twice the mass. It has about 7.8 times the Sun's radius. The companion is 5.8 more times more luminous than the Sun and is about 1.35 solar masses. It has approximately the same solar radius. The stars have apparent magnitudes of 4.4 and 6.12 and are approximately 146 light years in distance from the Sun. Here's something kind of interesting. Slide number 25. Hani's Voorwolp. Now, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce this because it's from Dutch. Is a quasar ionization echo, a rare type of astronomical object that was considered an unidentified astronomical object at the time of its discovery. It was first spotted by Hanny Arkel, a Dutch school teacher, in 2007. She discovered the object while taking part in something called Galaxies Zoo Project, which any astronomy student or anyone out there can participate in. Galaxy Zoo. The object's name, Hanny's Voorwolp, means Hanny's object in Dutch. Astronomers found this is only visible in about a 300 light year long gaseous streamer stretching from the galaxy IC 2497. That's the visible part. The greenish part is visible because of a searchlight beam of light from the galaxy's core illuminated it. This beam comes from a quasar, which is a bright energetic object that is powered by a black hole at the center of the galaxy. Wow, all that's pretty interesting. Slide number 26, please. KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. There are more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Leo and Leo Minor. I've just given you a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has over 70 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. If you observe 10 of those objects in an observing program each month, then you can usually earn an observing certificate and a pen in about a year. Slide number 27, and that is Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week, Leo and Leo Minor. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Holo for the research and words on the deep sky objects that I've used, borrowed, and I usually steal on a nightly basis. I also, at times, use the website constellation-guide.com for information as well. Next week, we'll take a look at two constellations, Pyxis, the compass, and then Tela, the pump, the air pump. And back to you, Bill, N5BB. This is KF5JHA.
Yes, this is N5BB and Skynet. Do we have any late check-ins to the net? If so, please come now.
This is Kilo 5 Alpha November Echo, Kane and Richardson, no traffic.
In K5ANE, you're number 30 this evening. Welcome to the net. Let me see. Let's go and skip the launches. Brenda, can you tell us about recent astronomical discoveries? WB5OZL. This is N5BB with Skynet.
WB5OZL, sure. Ocean currents predicted on Saturn's moon Enceladus. Encased in an icy shell, the ocean on Enceladus appears to be turning. Buried beneath 20 kilometers of ice, the subsurface ocean of Enceladus, one of Saturn's moons, appears to be turning with currents akin to those on Earth. The theory, derived from the shape of Enceladus' ice shell, challenges the current thinking that the moon's global ocean is homogeneous apart from some vertical mixing driven by the warmth of the moon's core. Enceladus, a tiny frozen ball about 500 kilometers in diameter, about 1/7 the diameter of Earth's moon, is the sixth largest moon of Saturn. Despite its small size, Enceladus attracted the attention of scientists in 2014 when a flyby of the Cassini spacecraft discovered evidence of its large subsurface ocean and sampled water from geyser-like eruptions that occur through fissures in the ice at the South Pole. It's one of the few locations in the solar system with liquid water, another Jupiter's moon, Europa, making it a target of interest for astrobiologists searching for signs of life. The ocean on Enceladus is almost entirely unlike Earth's. Earth's ocean is relatively shallow, covers 3/4 of the planet's surface, is warmer at the top from the sun's rays and colder in the depths near the seafloor, and has currents that are affected by wind. Enceladus, meanwhile, appears to have a globe-spanning and completely subsurface ocean that is at least 30 kilometers deep and cooled at the top near the ice shell and warmed at the bottom by the heat of the moon's core. Despite their differences, Caltech graduate student Anna Lobo suggests that oceans on Enceladus have currents akin to those on Earth. The work builds on measurements by Cassini, as well as the search of Andrew Thompson, professor of environmental science and engineering, who's been studying the way that ice and water interact to drive ocean mixing around Antarctica. The oceans of Enceladus and Earth share one important characteristic: they are salty. As shown by findings published in Nature Geoscience on March 25th, variations in salinity could serve as drivers of the ocean circulation on Enceladus, much as they do in Earth's southern ocean, which surrounds Antarctica. Lobo and Thompson collaborated on the work with Stephen Vance and Sykaran Saramina of JPL, which Caltech manages for NASA. Gravitational measurements and heat calculations from Cassini had already revealed that the ice shell is thinner at the poles than at the equator. Regions of thin ice at the poles are likely associated with melting, and regions of thick ice at the equator with freezing, Thompson says. This affects the ocean current because when salty water freezes, it releases the salts and makes the surface water heavier, causing it to sink. The opposite happens in the regions of melt. Knowing the distribution of ice allows us to place constraints on circulation patterns, Lobo explains. An idealized computer model based on Thompson's studies of Antarctica suggests that the regions of freezing and melting identified by the ice structure could be connected by the ocean currents. This would create a pole-to-equator circulation that influences the distribution of heat and nutrients. Understanding which regions of the subsurface ocean might be the most hospitable to life as we know it could one day inform efforts to search for signs of life, Thompson says. All right, that's from Science Daily. Back to net, WB50ZL.
Okay, this is N5BB. Tom, I'm going to ask you and anybody else, since it's time to close the net, as far as upcoming launches, Boeing was trying to launch their Starliner for another test this month. Does anybody in the net know if the Boeing Starliner finally got scheduled for their launch in April? This is N5BB asking the question. Heard, so I'll have to go and do some research myself. I don't think they've got a launch date set yet, but that's going to be another interesting launch. Hopefully not as exciting as the recent SpaceX launches down in South Texas. Okay, this evening we had 30 stations check in. I want to thank everybody for checking and participating. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. Sounds like a calculus situation, the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. It's the Dallas Amateur Radio Club. If you would like to try your hand at this, by being a net control, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets, that's N-E-T-S, at w5fc.org. That's whiskey5friedchicken.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the end of the net. Next Saturday night, this is N5BB, closing a net at 10:33 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Returning the repeater to normal amateur radio use. Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you to discuss Afterglow. This is N5BB Clear. Good evening.
Thank you, Bill. Great net. And yes, we'll be back for Gentlemen Broncos, recommended by one of our regulars here on this repeater for the Afterglow movie net. We'll be discussing that movie from, I think it's 2008. I wrote 2009, but I think it's 2008. Come back in about 5 minutes. We'll go ahead and ask if anybody would like to be net control along the way, but we'll start the net in 5 minutes. 5 minutes, Gentlemen Broncos from 2008 or 9 or something. Come back then. KE5I6.
Station calling is too noisy to be audible. We can't really even get your call sign. N5BB.
Who says I need to, like, play net control tonight? I'm dubious.
Sickle. Well, I'm Bill in 5dB. Hello, Michael.
Nobody that agrees with Tom. I think I'll just, turn the radio back off and go back to sleep.
Dad either a third or fourth line in there with the mother's clothing line. Didn't really see much of a start on it until she tried to get in with that one guy, I think from Penny's or something like that. And she came running out to the car screaming, and that's when the kid took off to go find that guy that sold his idea. And it seems like the ending actually was the mother becoming a success for at least getting the showing of her clothing line. So I was thinking I had one more subplot into it. Back to the next KG5 PME.
Hey, thank you. And now it's time to see if there's anybody else out there that wants to check into this fine, this wonderful, this Afterglow movie that talks about gentlemen Broncos. Please come now. Call my name and whether you saw the movie or not. Alright, well, hearing nothing, then I shall take another shot and hand it back over to Bill for commentary about characters. Not plot, not special effects, just characters, Bill. Come on, restrain yourself. You know you can do it. WT9B.
Oh, the characters. Z5BB. Tabitha Jenkins was a very actually evil girl trying to get her way, and she essentially stole money from Benjamin up front, and after seeing the way that she treated him up there, he should have just stayed away from her, but he didn't. And she got him to appear in a rather risque little movie that was evidently really, really bad. We only saw pieces of it, but the pieces we saw were worse than any of the other movies. They were horrible. So that was her character. Benjamin, the protagonist, played it rather straight. So he quite often didn't have a lot of emotion on his face. And I'm not sure if that was on purpose or not, but he played it just kind of blank-faced quite often, kind of like these things are happening around me and I'm just watching them occur. So somehow we didn't have as much empathy with him, I guess, as we could have had, because it's kind of like things were happening to him, but he wasn't as engaged with him, at least in the first part of the movie, as he could be. He only got engaged near the end of the movie where he got really mad and kind of protected his mom and then went back and protected his rights in the document. But in the early part of the movie, his character was pretty flat. You didn't learn a lot about what he really thought about things. You kind of saw him looking at these other girls and the other kids, but you didn't learn as much as we could have learned about what he thought about the other kids and the adults. He was just kind of observing them. And so kind of weak characterization there. Most of the other characters were over the top. Sam Rockwell playing Bronco or Brutus was very over the top. He was probably the only big name actor in the whole thing. Jermaine Clement, who played Chevalier, I think did a reasonably good job, but it was a very over-the-top character, of course. Very completely self-centered and just a spoof of a science fiction writer. Way over the top. The mom, Jennifer Coolidge, who played Judith the mom, that was also overdone. She was, she was a goofy mom, and I don't know. It wasn't as over the top as the other characters. Let's put it that way. But anyway, Lonnie Donato, who played the character. He was the character that was the apparently a high school student, or maybe graduated high school student, who was filming the local movie. This is N5BB. He was way over the top. The actor played him with a really big mouth. His mouth and lips were just really open. And carefully looking at that, I don't think that was natural. I think he purposely played it that way, and it's a caricature of and the actor is from Mexico, but it's a character of a Mexican actor kind of thing, way over the top. So I guess that's my comment. A lot of over the top acting. And I blame it on the director and the screenplay. N5BB.
Alrighty, let's see who's next on the list. Tony says later. K580, you're up from WT9V.
So yeah, the characters. I thought they did a pretty good job with overall designing a bunch of these characters, and I felt that the actors and actresses portraying the roles did a pretty decent job overall. Trying to understand, this movie was primarily a coming-of-age kind of movie. A lot of the characters there are, they're kind of with their own interests in mind throughout this whole series, and it's very much a trying to understand who your friends are and understand who really matters in this. Which, of course, in this movie, ultimately the idea is what matters are yourself and your family. At least that's kind of how I take away at it, because ultimately a lot of the friends that he has are really only interested in their own self-interests and are really just trying to use him. Even his idol and everything else is just trying to use him for his own gain. And so yeah, it's it ultimately kind of works out to trying to showcase the idea that it's important to stand up for yourself and be your own character, which is kind of a big thing too, because throughout this whole movie, as others have mentioned, the main actor is kind of a blank slate, and I kind of see that as both. It kind of lets you project your own emotions and ideas and things like that onto how he's reacting, as opposed to him being the reaction that you're supposed to see. It's a lot of, at least that's kind of how I took it, as trying to have you put yourself in his position with him being such a blank slate. But then also that, throughout most of the movie, he doesn't really have any kind of emotion at all. And by the end of it, he actually starts caring about things, starts doing something about it, and ultimately works out in his favor at the end when he finally actually starts showing and reacting to what it is he actually cares about. Yeah, that ramble is all for me tonight. Well, at least characterization side. Yeah, this is K5A&E, back to that.
Alrighty. Next. Hi, Brenda from WT9V.
This is WB5OZL. characters were really unlikable, but that was, that was the point. And then a lot were likable, but it followed a formula. You got your jerks and you got your nice people. So I thought they were well cast. Jennifer Coolidge is one of my favorite actresses. I've seen her in many, many, many things. And, she was perfect in this. Just perfect. And just nuts. Most people in this movie were just absolutely nuts. But that kind of made it work. It was sort of a cartoon feel. Caricatures, extreme characters, unbelievable, ridiculous characters, and it's kind of the flavor of this movie. So, it's whether they were believable, they weren't, but like I say, they were extreme, so, looking back, I think I'd probably like to see it again. It was kind of fun, and to see some of the things that I missed. If you're not watching Tom live, you need to go look at him. He's got the same sweater that Chevalier had, identical. It's just bizarre that he should have the same sweater on, and it's really amazing. So go look on the stream if you haven't already. Back to that, WB5OZ.
It's not the same sweater. The patterns are in different places. It was cut from the same bolt of cloth, I'll admit to that. I asked Tom, I really haven't had that much to drink yet. I asked Tom, he says, so did you just run out and buy that last night, or did you have one of those, oh man, kind of moments when you saw it on screen last night? Anyway, speaking of Tom, it's not your turn yet. W5EBB, David, what you got for us on characterization?
Well, Brenda, I think you're right. You sort of have to watch this once to get the 10,000-foot view, to kind of see what its angle is and where it's going, and then you can rewatch it and sort of, appreciate it maybe a little more, which I did. But it didn't really come full circle till you get to the end of the movie, so yeah, watch it again while it's free. Okay, characters. A minor character is Cletus, the host of Cletus Fest, played by the actor Clive Reville. He's 5'7", a New Zealander, currently aged 90. I saw his name pop up in the credits and I thought, I know who that guy is. In the movie, he's the guy who steps up to the podium to kick off Cletus Fest and introduces the Chevalier. Clive Reville is the actor who played the Emperor in The Empire Strikes Back, the original 1980 despecialized theatrical version. And when you look at his face and hear him speak at the podium in this movie, you can imagine him wearing a cloak and his vocal inflection saying as the two-story holographic Emperor, the son of Skywalker must not become a Jedi. Yes, he would be a great asset. Can it be done? Replacing him later with Ian McDermott in that scene in the specialized, now standard version of The Empire Strikes Back was just not right. So yeah, watch it again and you will see the Emperor. Now the characters in this movie, they live in their own little world. They're people who are quick to defend any encroachment into their values and sense of fairness and decency, as Benjamin was quick to respond to the unwelcome advances by Don Carlo toward his mother. And the guardian angel Dustin was quick to offer retribution against anyone who wronged him or Benjamin by launching a barrage of poo darts or just punching them in the throat. Now, Dr. Ronald Chevalier was, of course, the interloper in this community, a slimy antagonist villain portrayed very well as the self-absorbed megalomaniac plagiarizing hypocrite. Yeah, so he's got a few flaws. And yet he is revered, even idolized, by his loyal fans. That is until his misdeeds were revealed to the public. Now, of course, Benji took great exception to his game warden father figure being, character Bronco being emasculated by Chevalier into the character Brutus. Of the transformation, Benji must have been thinking, can this man bear a child? Why then do I see his hands on his loins like a woman in labor? Jeremiah 30, verse 6. The Chevalier ultimately got his comeuppance when his book Brutus and Balzac was replaced with Benji Yeast Lords, and Brutus reverted back with light-speed gender fluidity back into the original Bronco character. Now, I agree Mom was a hoot as the proud, conservative mom. The pastel color palette used in her polyhedral home decor and nightgown fabric seemed to have been last updated in the Miami Vice era. And she is not without her disappointments and frustrations, which she usually takes out not on people, but on her hardened popcorn balls with an ice pick, and by getting slap-happy with her cod with a spatula. Mom's send-off to Benji as he boards the bus to Cletus Fest, quote, remember who you are and what you stand for, unquote. And I think that line pretty much sums up the gist, the message, the moral of this movie. W5EBB.
Thank you very much. And now, it is time for Mr. Chevalier, Mr. General. I get confused looking at the video. Tom, from WT9B.
Well, this is KE5ICX. I don't know if I could even come close to David's analysis. He's always got an in-depth, deep-cut analysis on the characters and direct quotes and everything else. A lot of times I forget what room I'm in during the movie that we're watching. But yeah, the characterization, I agree with him. I think that one of the things is to remember where you came from and who you are. And don't compromise that. I think that is probably the message, especially for Chevalier, is that if you can't come up with your own stuff, there's a problem. And as such, when you take on a chameleon role of someone else's work, whatever it is, good, bad, or indifferent, you are compromising yourself and you're compromising your integrity. And in the process of this, you got Benjamin, who's innocently going out and trying to do the best he can, and he gets perverted into other things along the way in order to create his own vision, such as it is. And as I mentioned earlier about the plot, and I will repeat it only here for one reason, and that is that was his story worthy of something bigger? It was, and it probably should have been, but it didn't happen. But I will say this, one of the interesting things that's happened in the last, 40 years since this movie was supposed to take place in the 1980s, anybody can be anything they want. You can go on the internet, you can create stuff, and I see quality stuff every frickin' day with what people can do and what they're capable of, and they don't need a ton of money in order to make that happen. To me, that is the new frontier. If you're going to be creative, you can come up with stuff that is quite amazing, and you can go ahead and bring it to the public without a filter, and I think that is fantastic. We've seen a lot of things. We've even watched some amateur productions that have been done on this for this net, and we thought they were pretty good. Not perfect. People are learning. People are doing. People are making things better the next time around. They take criticism well, and they go ahead and make perfect. Some of these folks have gone on to do things in the professional world because this became proof sets for what they could do going forward. I think that's fantastic. So there's a real storyline here that is flash forward to the 21st century, and you're able to do some pretty amazing things, and way better than what we saw in this movie. But the purpose is still the same. So I'm good with that. I'll wait my turn on the next round, KE5I6.
I was starting to make a note, to make a snarky comment, but then you went and finished before I had a chance to. So what I was going to say was, you mentioned that some of the amateur things that we've watched were, pretty good, and but not perfect. And I said, maybe not perfect, but then some of the professional stuff, is far from perfect. Waterworld, for instance. So anyway. That takes us back to KB9SOK. Sean, what you got to say about characterization for Gentleman Broncos? WT9V.
Yeah, it's KB9SOK. I think everybody's pretty well covered it. I don't know I really got anything to add. I do agree with Tom's comment about the stuff that's being made online these days. Some of it is pretty impressive. And it is really good, so it is neat. And you can definitely spend a lot of time losing your way on YouTube watching all these different videos. I really don't have much to add about the movie itself, so I'll just send it back to Net Control so somebody else can come up with something. This is KB9SOK.
Alrighty, thank you, sir. And that takes us down to KG5DMN. James, what do you have to say about characterization from WT90?
KG5DMN. Characterization, the thing that really kind of jumped out at me listening to everybody talk, if he was homeschooled, probably means he didn't get out very much. He didn't look like he had a whole lot of big crowd of friends he ran around with. So I imagine that kind of kept him totally depressed. Let's put it that way. When he meets up with the girl at as they're going to whatever the summer or that seminar or camp or whatever it was, he meets up with her, and she is a lot more experienced than he is, and she tries to push him into, keep pushing him toward doing things that he doesn't know anything about, and finally, towards the end of the movie, after 2/3 of the way through the movie, he finally kind of wakes up a little bit and starts figuring out kind of what's going on around him, and gets a little more assertive about what is going on. Send it back to the net, KG5DMN.
Alrighty, let's see if we have any more check-ins for the Afterglow Movie Net. Please come now with your call sign, name, and whether you saw the movie or not. WT9V. Yeah, it figures the one time that I remember to ask for check-ins at the end of the cycle each time, there's nobody there. Just goes to show. Alright, Bill, it's your turn to talk about special effects. What you got for us from WT9V?
This is Inside BB. Thank you, Michael. Well, since it's late in the net here, I'll talk about special effects and music. So, special effects. Well, the TV in Ben's room is an old cathode ray tube TV. So the movie is made to seem as if it occurred, and the cars are kind of old. So it looked to me like it was meant to occur not in 2009, but somewhere back maybe in the early 90s, maybe, something like that. Anyway, the Fighting Stags were pretty weird. These antelope or whatever that were flying around with machine guns and rockets coming of all orifices and places on them. And they were stupid, but they looked pretty good. I would say that most of the special effects, I think, were believable for those stupid things that were happening. So the special effects did not distract me as unbelievable or odd. I thought they were okay. The music was interesting. The music scene, I don't think there was any music written for the movie. It was a bunch of songs, nearly all, maybe all of them were ones which I recognize. But if you're younger, you may not. But there's things from the earliest one I saw was Act Naturally, which is performed by Buck Owens. A few of you are old enough to know who Buck Owens was. And it was from 1963. But then we had Black Sabbath performing Paranoid from 1970. We had Carry On, Wayward Son, a very popular song by Kansas from 1976. We had it starts with In the Year 2525. Now you younger people have never heard that song, but that's a very famous psychedelic rock song from 1969. It was recorded in Odessa, Texas. It was recorded in West Texas. It was essentially a one-hit wonder by a couple of guys. And there was Just Like Jesse James, which was recorded by Cher, Celestial Soda Pop, and a couple of others by Ray Lynch. You know, this was just a who's who of kind of music that kids may have been listening to, much of it in earlier times. So, you know, he might have been listening to some of it by the time he was there. But kind of an interesting choice of music. I kind of like the music. That's all I got in 5BD.
Alrighty, 55 TM. Tony, it's your turn. Or do you want me to wait until after this round? No, I'll come back to Tony again. K5ANE, it's now your turn. From WK9B. So the overall special effects and aesthetics and things like that of this movie were pretty good. You know, it definitely trying to it definitely had the same kind of look and feel as a movie like Napoleon Dynamite, and it was kind of produced around the same time frame as that, and by the same, apparently the same people that made Napoleon Dynamite are some of the same people that made this movie, so it definitely makes sense. It feels like that same kind of late 2000s coming of age kind of drama movie that was kind of common to be seen at that time period. And overall, somebody earlier in the net mentioned the way the town feels because of the small town nature of it, and especially with the way the characters are. And I realize we're not talking about characters anymore, but it still kind of goes into, you know, just the way everybody looked and the way the town was laid out and the scenes
that are shot. And yeah, it's kind of interesting seeing that, especially being somebody that grew up only in some of the bigger cities in Texas. You know, I didn't always get a lot of exposure to small towns, and so it's you know, this definitely feels how I'd imagine some small town living would definitely be like. So yeah, this is K5 A&E, back to net.
Alrighty. WB5 Oscar Zulu Lima. Brenda, what do you have for, well, since Bill decided to just talk about whatever, what do you have for whatever?
I'm real good at whatevers. This is WB50ZL. Special effects, well, you know, there wasn't much, except, of course, for these crazy movies, the deer. I never did understand what the deer were doing there. It was kind of weird. But, you know, it wasn't a real big budget movie to start with, so I don't know what they could have done with special effects. It just, you know, wasn't in the script. Yeah, I like the music. I love the old music. I'm old enough to remember all of it, of course. And let's see, what else? Whatevers. I've pretty much said everything that I need to say about this movie. It has some really interesting actors, and I looked up some of them. They were in a lot of other movies. Jennifer Coolidge was in one of my favorite movies, Best in Show. And of course she was in the Legally Blonde movies and American Pie movies, and she's had an amazing career. So, and she was good in this. She's a really excellent actress. And, alright, I'm babbling. I'm going to quit. WB50ZL.
Too late for that. W5 EBB, David. What you got from WT9B?
Well, first, I think the deer were part of the story because the story was a tribute to Benji's late dad, who was a game warden. So I think he was just drawing from his, you know, his experience, I guess, and again, as a tribute to his dad. I think that's why the deer were so prolific. I'll just talk about the music. Yeah, the music. This movie was sort of a platform for some really great folk and pop songs from the 70s. And yeah, as the end credits play, "Carry On Wayward Son" by the group Kansas was played. And if you watch the official music video for that song, you can see that one of the singers is a dead ringer for Bronco, and another one, a guitarist, is a dead ringer for Dustin. So I think the director was very selective about what songs he included in this movie, and they were there for a reason. They did sort of support the tone or the scene in a very specific way. And you know, so watch "Carry On Wayward Son," rewatch that official video, and the lyrics, of course, of that song are excellent. And it even sort of characterizes what Benji was doing in getting this fame, and it's masquerading as a man with a reason. My charade I claim to be a wise man. Well, it surely means that I don't know. So it's really great lyrics, great music. W5.
Alrighty, thank you very much. And that brings us around to Tom, K5 ICX, for near final thoughts, sir, from WT90.
Well, let's see. Final thoughts. Let's see. I thought the film was interesting. I liked, as I mentioned earlier, about the plot. I liked the idea about it, and I thought that was a wonderful germ of an idea going forward. they could have, I think, taken it in a more serious but comical direction. There's plenty of stories about things going on, especially in the science fiction realm, that are amazingly hilarious. Just go anywhere, Google a science fiction convention, Google time with writers, fans, any of that. As an example, let me say this. There's a fellow, and I'll mention him because he's unabashedly a fan, Doug Drexler, who is working on the Orville. He managed to fast-talk his way into studio at Paramount for Star Trek The Motion Picture, and he managed to land a job. That's an interesting story, because he figured out a way of doing it, because he knew everybody on the set, he knew everybody who was working on the movie, and they thought he was just one of the people there to be a part of it. And those types of stories are really interesting to me. This one came out as a little bit more superficial, in the sense that everybody just, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. The passion, that's what it is. I think that's what I'm missing from this film is true passion. The true passion to do what you want to do. Everybody is kind of worn out and tired, and that's not what you want. You want different sides of the coin. You want the kid to be successful. You want him to be really excited, and he's sort of excited, and then he's just beat up by everybody around him. Don't do that. Be successful, because when we're watching the movie, we expect you to be successful, and the other guy goes down in flames, but not because of a third party, not because Mom did it, although we appreciate what Mom did. We want him to be able to take it forward and do some really cool stuff. That's what's missing from this film, is that it's the circumstances that define the moment rather than him defining the moment in the circumstances. Let's see, music, fantastic, enjoyed it, all classic themes that we've all come to know and love, and refamiliarize ourselves with. I'm cool with that. All right, that's it for me. KE5I6.
Yep. Thank you very much. CB9SOK, Sean. What you got for us from, who am I again? Oh, WT90.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yeah, the special effects, they obviously were, they were going for that comedy feel, and so, obviously they didn't, really want to make serious special effects. So yeah, they were, yeah. I agree there about the music. The music actually probably was the best part of this movie for me. I did enjoy the songs. My final thoughts are, it's just, once again, it's comedy subjective. If it's your cup of tea, then, great. I thought the movie did have some potential there, but it was a miss for me, but I get it. It may not be for all. So yeah, other than that, it's great to hear the repeater working again. Last week I tried to listen in, it was a little rough. But anyway, that's all I got. This is KB9SOK, back to net control.
Yeah, and that brings us around to KG5DNN. James, what do you have to say to possibly wrap things up from WT90?
This KG5BMN. I don't know what else much to add to it. I thought at first I thought the things for the movie secondary plot with all the almost animated cartoon-like characters in it was kind of a little ridiculous, but then I got to realizing that they're just trying to they're trying to make a film about what he was writing about. So, yeah, well, okay, I guess that's okay. And the movie, the music, I actually have Kansas in one of my playlists. You get to hear it on the radio, on satellite radio once in a while also. And, haven't heard 2525 in a long time. I guess it said earlier it was one-hit wonder, so it got played back in the late 60s, early 70s, so that's the last time. Don't hear it very often. Back to the net, KG5PMN.
Alrighty then. Alright, let's go back to Tony, NT5TM, and see if he's there, since we're truly at the end of things now. From WT9B. I guess not. Anybody else out there that wants to check in, you know the drill, call sign name, whether you saw the movie, what's the price of tea in China, things like that. All right. One final round of any other thoughts. Anybody have any final thoughts? Come now with your call sign, please. And that's just so in case anybody else thought you were hallucinating silence. I didn't hear anything either. So, I have it on good authority that next week's movie is Mr. Nobody from 2009. And before you ask, Bill, I don't know, Google it, that's what I did. And by good authority, I mean rumor has it, and by rumor has it, I mean Tom told me after he quit ignoring me, which took me about 20 minutes to get him to pay attention. Anyway, y'all have a good night. It's been fun. It's been real. I don't know if it's been real fun. Tom looks like he's talking about something. Tom talking? Tom said something. I haven't let go of the microphone yet. Alright, I'll let go of the microphone. Y'all have fun. Talk amongst yourselves. WT9B.
Well, thank you, Michael, for doing tonight's movie. Even though you didn't see it, you managed to get through it perfectly fine in an imperfect world and an imperfect net control. But you sounded okay.
I faked it. I have practice. WT9B.
W5FT.
Alright, it's time to watch Prisoners of Space. I think it's tonight's episode. Season 3. We're almost done with Lost in Space Season 3 for the umpteen millionth time. I think that's the one. Yeah, that's it. Bye, KG5I6.
Well, Tom, you do have all of Lost in Space on DVD, don't you? I do. W5EVD.
Well, yeah, David, but it's on now, and I can watch it with other people alone.
Okay, well, I wanted to ask you, how would you have fixed Gentleman Broncos? Because I understand what you're saying about the lack of passion, that's what's missing in the movie, but wouldn't that have been kind of out of character for these people
to have risen above and gotten super ambitious and taken care of things, and would they have been successful in doing that?
All right, well, let me say this about that. Okay, first off, Robert Hamner is doing, and the episode is Fugitives of Space, and it's the same guy who did, what was it, the mountain thing, I can't remember, at any rate, same guy, writing stuff, a hacked episode for Lost in Space, also wrote for, Spencer's Mountain, the TV series, the Waltons, he wrote for the Waltons later on. So you can be and do anything you want in the end. The thing that bothered me about it was that the story was so superficial and so silly that it distracts from the fact that the potential of a future writer, this kid, could have been fantastic if it had been a more solid story. The established writer is there, and he's just trying to pull something together, and he just is a hack. He just says, well, we'll just put Latin words and Latin letters into it to enhance it somehow. And I just found that really kind of demeaning, especially for science fiction, but I guess it could be for any genre, but science fiction was the one that was pulled out. That's what bugged me about it more than anything else, because there's some really good stories out there. They've been told, especially on the internet now. A lot of them are bad. 90% of everything is crap, as Robert Silverberg says. But in the end, the thing is that everybody tries and they get better at what they do. Was it Robert Silverberg? Yeah, I think it is. In any case, that was my point, is they set such a low bar that they demean the characters, to me. Just an opinion. What do you think?
Well, I think it was consistent, though, the way it was done, and because his ambition was to get published, and he did that. It wasn't to get, crazy famous or anything, and his rewards were directed back into the town, and I think there's also a good reason why Carry On Wayward Son was played right at the end, and I should have quoted this first lyric. Once I rose above the noise and confusion just to get a glimpse beyond this illusion. I was soaring ever higher, but I flew too high. So, like Icarus, maybe this character didn't try to take it to the next level because he knew that was the danger zone. And that was not where he wanted to be. He wanted to be contained, limited in scope to just what he could do. He got published, and that's what he wanted.
All right, well, that makes sense, I suppose. And it was Teddy Sturgeon, not Robert Silverberg. And Brenda's telling me 90% of everything is 95% of everything is crap. I think it's 90%, but she may have Googled it already. Yeah, I don't know. There is some subjectivity in the whole thing, and it's a personal thought through it all. I didn't mind it. I thought it was interesting. I'll probably go back and watch it again. I'm sure I'm going to pull things out of it. Some of the stuff that was interesting was more mundane, which we never went into, which was just doing the photography and trying to figure out how to make stuff work and all of that. Oh boy, I deal with that all the time. We do low budget video at work, and we try and make it look great, but you got to get there too. And there's a lot of I don't know how do you describe it? Improvisation, I guess, that goes along with it. Plus, you have a limited amount of time. I think that's one of the things that was about all of this, especially with doing the science fiction movies, is that there's so many trapdoors, so many perils that you have to go through in order to make a successful film, or a successful, in this case, a story, but a successful product. It is hard to do, especially with science fiction or speculative fiction. It is really hard, and you end up being one of those people that ends up, beaten by the roadside. How dare you come up with something like this? And maybe that's one of the stories too. I don't know. KE5ICX.
Well, I agree this movie could have been done better, but by the tone it's set early on, I think it sort of carried through it consistently to the end, and I'm overanalyzing it, but I really liked it. I thought it's no Galaxy Quest in terms of a satire, but I thought it was pretty good. And I'll let you get to Lost in Space, and appreciate you introducing this movie to the group and your comments. W5EBB.
Hey David, thank you very much for suggesting it. I really appreciate it. And don't make yourself scarce. You got other ideas. Bring them up. Send an email to me. I appreciate it very much, and we'll put them in the list if it's at all possible. And by possible, I mean a lot of it just has to do with, is it available? Can we get it? Can we find it? And be able to watch it without spending a major bunch of money on it, whatever that might be. Or not. I mean, a lot of films are really available in the mainstream very easily. In any case, I do appreciate it very much. And come back again. Maybe we'll see you next week. Appreciate all your comments and commentary. That's it for me. I'll see you later. KE5ICX clear.
All right, very good. Thanks, Tom. Have a good weekend. The W5EBB clear.